Do you ever get the feeling that we're surrounded? Well, hello and welcome to my channel. This channel is about wildlife photography, and this time I'm going to be looking at the photographs that I took in November and looking at what worked, what didn't work so well, hopefully what I've learned, and my plans for the future. This month, of course, last month in October, I had some wonderful times in Epping Forest, filming and photographing fallow deer. It's the rutting season for fallow deer, and I got some good pictures and I got some nice film of the fallow deer. You can see those in some links I'll put at the end of this one, and it was a great. I really enjoyed it. It was a great time I had in the forest there. Of course, the lovely colours of autumn as well. November has been a bit more challenging because we've had, in Britain anyway, we've had a higher tier, a higher level of lockdown due to the coronavirus. So we're not actually able to, we're not supposed to be going out except for essential purposes. We can walk around locally, but we're not supposed to travel for non-essential reasons. So that's really constrained my my adventures to what's local in my area, which I'm lucky. Although I live in a huge city, London, my local area is quite good for wildlife. So I'm near to three areas which are good for wildlife. One is Wanstead Park, Wanstead Flats, and Hollow Ponds, or often it's called Leyton Flats on maps. Leyton Flats is just 5 minutes walk from where I live. So the month of November I've spent the majority of my time in Hollow Ponds with my camera, very near to my house, photographing what I can, which has been great. It's been good, and we'll have a look at some of the photos in a minute. But one of the things that does make it a bit more challenging is that because of the lockdown, because pubs are closed, restaurants are closed, all leisure activities are closed, a lot of people are not working, or they're working from home. Because there's so little else to do, an awful lot of people have been going out walking in the woods more than would normally do so, and that makes wildlife photography a challenge, because you've got a lot more people doing what people do: jogging, walking the dog, taking the kids out, walking with friends, and that does make it difficult. So to get around this, I tried a few times photographing woodland birds, and I got a few pictures of woodland birds, a few pictures of those kinds of species, but because of the sheer number of people out, I decided really to focus pretty much, not necessarily consciously, but I just ended up photographing more birds over the water in flight. So you'll see a lot of birds in flight this month, and it's not because I had a set plan to do that as part of a big overall strategy, but simply because it's easier to photograph flying birds over the water when there are so many people about than it is to find woodpecker or to find kestrel and things like that in the woods when there are just so many people and so many dogs and joggers and so on. So what I'd like to do now is to have a look at some of my pictures, and some of them I'd be very interested to hear what you think about about the photographs and what you think works and what doesn't work, and what you like and what you don't like. But I want to look at the photographs and see how I construct a photograph, what I'm looking for, and how I can improve. So that's the purpose of this video. I hope you find it interesting, and let's go and have a look on the computer and see what we can see in terms of the composition, the exposure and the settings of these photographs. Okay, so here we are on the computer, and these are some of the pictures that I've taken this month. I'm not going to go through them all, but I just thought I'd pick out a few things that that might be of interest. As you can see, there are quite a lot of bird in flight photographs, but let's start with this this little Goldcrest. So let's bring up the. So I just get a bit of general information about the picture. 1/500th of a second, 500mm lens focal length, and f5.6, which is the largest aperture this lens goes to. As you can see, the ISO is 4500, which is high, much higher than I would like it to be, but it was a very dull day. I mean, we're getting close to the winter solstice. In Britain, in the northern hemisphere here, it's very at this latitude, it's there's not a lot of light, especially if it's cloudy. And of course, here also we're in woodland. You have to go where the birds are. So this Goldcrest was shot in less than ideal lighting conditions, but I was able to get reasonably close to it, which I think has made the image work, even despite the high ISO. And you can see, I think it's an interesting image, because I think that I quite like the framing of the image, where the bird is framed within the twigs. I quite like that compositionally. What I'm not so keen on is the fact that the bird is right slap in the centre of the frame. So compositionally, I wouldn't normally do that. But in this case, because there were very bright, distracting sections outside of this is a crop, so there were very bright, distracting elements outside of the area here. In order to crop those out, I had to go for placing the bird fairly central in the image, which I wouldn't normally do, but in this case I had to make that compromise. I mean, in terms of so normally I would follow, generally speaking, I would follow in terms of positioning the bird with cropping. I would, generally speaking, use the rule of thirds and give the bird or the animal some room to look into. So you haven't got the bill here and the edge of the frame right in the bird's nose, as it were. So that's what I would do. The other thing that I'm very keen on, and you'll probably see it in pretty much all of my photographs, is I do like eye contact. So I try to get the animal's eye in the photograph, and also ideally, if you've got a little, even on this one, it's only a faint spot of light reflected in the bird's eye, but I think that gives the picture a little bit more intimacy. It makes a bit of a connection. It makes a connection between the viewer and the subject, and I think that gives the image more power, more impact. So this is my Goldcrest. Let's have a look at something else. This picture here is quite heavily cropped. This bird was at quite a distance, but what I like about this image is the light, and it's there was quite a warm evening light on this bird, and I think that was nice to capture. Again, the ISO was high. This is again, well, as it's a flying bird, I've shot it at 1,600th of a second, aperture 5.6 at 500 millimeters focal length. The ISO is not too bad at 500, but it's a distance that's not giving really sharp and punchy resolution to this picture. But actually, compositionally, I quite like it, because I like the with a bird in flight, I like to be able to display the wing and show the feather patterns and the detail in the bird's wings, and in this case in the underbody, I like the trailing legs and those great big feet that grey herons have. I like this compositionally. I've given the bird some room to fly into. The background is fairly blurred and separated out, so it focuses attention on the subject, and the subject is also the lighter part of the photograph, so your eye is automatically drawn. When you look at this image, there's no doubt as to what the subject is. It's clear what this photograph is about. Now, well, if we're talking about what could be improved, this image is the famous Caspian Gull on Eagle Pond. This is a bit of a rarity in these parts, and people come for quite a way to see this bird. It's pretty regularly seen there. It's a resident on the pond, so this is a bit of a twitcher's delight, this bird. But what when I look at this, I mean, the bird was far away. The seagulls are notoriously difficult to photograph. White birds are highly reflective, so you can very easily overexpose the bird. But it's not. This bird is not overexposed in this image. But the problems are here. I mean, no picture is perfect, so all pictures have got strengths and weaknesses, and often lots of it comes down to personal taste. But this image, we've got the ISO is okay, 1/500th of a second, f5.6, 500 millimeters. But the bird is a little too far away to get really sharp detail on the bird. But my main criticism of this photograph that I took is the angle. So the angle on this is a bit too high. So ideally, I'd like to have been at. It wasn't physically possible in this case, well, without getting into the water. But the angle to have the camera down just at just above the waterline, shooting across. Would I think have given this image much more, would have made the image much more appealing, and it would have given a stronger separation between the bird and the water, and more blur, more bokeh to focus attention on the subject, and I think it just makes a more pleasing image to get as low as you can. In this case, it wasn't possible. But I'm just trying to give you ideas and thoughts on how I try to construct my pictures, and what I get right and what I don't get right. But I think the important thing is to look at your own work critically and look at how you could improve it. It's not always possible. Obviously, you're working with so many different variables. You need to think about a lot of different things at once. But that's what I would say about this image. Now, this image, let's have a look at the file information for this. This image, the light was not great, so we had I've got an ISO there of 1250. What I did with this image, I normally shoot, when I'm shooting, this is f5.6, 500 millimeters. What I normally do is shoot at 1/500th of a second, to just ensure that there's no impact on the image quality due to camera shake. And when you've got a long lens, you've got to use, generally speaking, you've got to use a faster shutter speed to prevent the impact of the lens. Even a micro movement in the lens could cause blur. The lens is stabilized, but but I generally work to the rule of a 500th of a second for stationary subjects like this. But in this case, because the light was so bad and my ISO was creeping higher than I really wanted it to, I took a few shots at a 500th, and then I took some shots at 1/320th of a second. So I slowed the shutter speed down a bit just to bring the ISO down, to try and bring out a bit more of the detail of this bird in not very good light. So if we look at actual size, I think you'll see that there's quite good, considering it wasn't very good light. I think there's quite good detail in this image at that, and I was able to hold the camera steadily enough, even though the shutter speed was I'd compromised on the shutter speed, as it were. So this image, bring up the file information. This image is, the ISO wasn't too high at 900, but as it's a flying bird, I increased the shutter speed, so it's 1/1600th of a second, same 5.6 and 500mm focal length. This is cropped, of course. Most of my images are cropped. The last image of stationary cormorant wasn't cropped, or very slight crop, but most of my images are cropped. And this image has got quite a lot of positive response on social media. I use Twitter and Flickr mostly, and I've got a lot of complimentary comments for this image, and I think there's lots of things that contribute towards that. People do like looking at pictures of colourful birds and beautiful birds. This possibly is more colourful and beautiful than a cormorant. It's all these things are personal choice, of course, but I think its composition. It's the lovely curved sort of wings, and the bright orange feet and the beautiful head. But one of the other things, and I've tried to get this in a few of my pictures more recently, is to take pictures of flying birds with shutter speeds where there's a bit of blur in the wings. If I shot this at maybe 2000th or 2500th of a second, I'd have probably frozen the wings entirely, the whole bird entirely, and that would have made a good picture, I think. But to me, when you have a bit of a blur in the wings, but if you can get the eye and the body of the bird in sharp focus, then frozen in movement, but blur in the wings, I think that gives the picture a certain sort of dynamic sense. And of course this one has also got fairly good background blur, so there's absolutely no doubt about the subject of this image, and I think that's probably why it's gone down well. I'll show you another one. So here again, this image, I've got. This one was actually taken at a 500th of a second, and better ISO, 500, slightly better light here, but 500th of a second has really given those wings a bit of blur. But at the same time, we've managed to get, if I just give it a slight magnification there, you can see that although I've got blur in the wings, I've managed to get a reasonably sharp capture of the bird's bill and eye. Again, eye contact, the importance of eye contact for me. It's really, I just think it creates a much more pleasing image. But you get a sense that this bird is moving fast, it's moving through the air, and it's a dynamic. The other thing is that my lens, my camera lens, has got vibration reduction, and the vibration reduction has got two modes. One is normal and one is sport. The sport mode is when normal is when you're taking a picture of something and it's just going to give you some vibration reduction, to reduce that effect of shutter of lens shake. But sport is where you're also moving the camera at the same time, so the subject is moving and the camera is moving, and the lens tries to compensate for those two movements. And when you're following a flying bird with a long lens, you're moving the camera quite a bit. And so I've been using that sport mode recently quite a bit for tracking flying birds, and it seems the lens has really impressed me at the way it can compensate for the movement even at a relatively slow shutter speed like this. I was very excited the other day to see this. This is not a great picture. The bird is far too small in the frame, it's far away. This is a terrible picture in all sorts of ways. There's a great big twig in front of the bird. You probably are having difficulty even seeing the bird. But if I magnify, you'll probably be able to tell what it is. It's a kingfisher. And of course there's no resolution, no detail. We can only just about tell that it's a kingfisher. But I like this picture because these things are infrequently seen, if at all, on hollow ponds. So I'm very glad that I've got some photographic proof that this bird is living. I've seen them a few times flitting about in the distance, and they are because it's a pond. If you're photographing kingfishers in a river situation, a small river, you've got the chance of getting in closer to them. But because the outer edges of the pond are so heavily used by dog walkers and joggers and so on, you're very unlikely to get a kingfisher on the edge of the ponds and be able to get close to it. So the kingfishers stick to the islands, and this one was sitting on a tree that's in an island on the pond. So this is taken from probably at least 100 meters away, which is obviously not going to give you a very good. It's not getting many megapixels on the actual bird, but I'm very pleased with it nonetheless. And that's one of the things that I plan to be working on in the forthcoming months. Getting better, closer pictures of kingfishers. I did the same with Goldcrest. I had Goldcrest are very difficult to photograph because they move so fast, and they're in dark wood. They're often in dark, dense woodland, so you've often got branches and twigs in front of them. They're a real challenge to photograph. They move really fast, but you've just got to keep at it until you get close enough, till you get in good enough light, till you get the right composition, and you will take a lot of pictures before you get to the point where you've got something that you're reasonably happy with, or something that you're willing to share. But it's a learning process. It's a learning curve, and it's about putting in the hours. You put in the hours, and you'll get the results. And that's what I've learned, and I'm happy to carry on seeing what I can get, putting in the hours, and eventually, if you do that, the rewards start coming. So I wish you good luck with your own photography, if that's what you do. And I hope that you found this useful. So I'll be carrying on with this. I'll be pursuing this, trying every day to make my photography better, and I hope you can too. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.